Okay, students, let's try to complete the lecture. This is the second part. In the first part, we covered the classification and description of speech sounds in general and of consonantal sounds in particular. Okay, we are dealing with the speech sounds of English language. Keep this in mind. Okay, we defined previously that speech sounds, consonantal speech sounds, okay, or consonants could be classified into three different categories, okay, based on three different criteria. The first one was the presence or the absence of voice, okay, if the vocal folds vibrate during the production of a certain speech sound, so that's called voice sound. And if they do not vibrate, so we call them voiceless sounds. So this is the first classification. We can classify consonants based on the presence or absence of voice, okay, whether they are voiced or unvoiced. The second criteria was actually that of place of articulation. Based on the place of articulation, we can classify speech sounds of English language into 8 different categories, okay, which we discussed and covered in the previous part of the lecture. Now, this is the second part of the lecture in which we are discussing the third criterion, okay, and let me just remind you, okay, this one, okay. So the first one was, let me have the pointer first of all, I'm really sorry for that. Okay, so the first one was voice, okay, the second one was place of articulation, okay, and based on voice we can classify speech sounds into 2 categories, and as far as place of articulation is concerned, so we grouped speech sounds into 8 different categories, okay. Now we are dealing with manner of articulation, okay, and what do you mean by manner of articulation? We mean by manner of articulation as, the way in which the obstruction of the airflow is accomplished, okay, how is actually the stricture formed, okay, in the oral cavity, okay, in the vocal tract, okay. So this is what we have, okay. So let's move on to different classification of speech of consonantal sounds, okay, into 6 different types, okay. The first one is plosives, the second, or it is also known as stops. The second classification is fricatives, the third affricates, then we have got nasals and then laterals, and the last one is the proximants, or sometimes we call them as semivowels, okay. So let's try to discuss and understand each one of them, okay. The first thing is plosives, okay, or sometimes we call them stops, okay. Different phoneticians have got different terms to refer to such sounds, okay, or phenomena. Okay, so why do we call them plosives? Is because, we have got greater plosion here, okay. During the production of speech sounds, we have got greater plosion. We have got 6 different sounds in English, okay. 3 pairs, 6 sounds, okay. The first pair is p and b. The second pair is t and d. And the third pair is k and g. So 3 pairs, okay. And keep this in mind that actually in the first pair, for example, p and b, the place of articulation remains the same. Both of them, p and b, are bilabials. And the manner is also the same. Why? Because both of these 2 sounds are stops, okay, they're plosives. But the distinction is that of voice. The first one, p, is voiceless. The second sound in the pair, b, is voiced. And same is true for t and d and k and g. And in the rest of the 2 pairs, both of them are the same. For t and d, both of these sounds are alveolar sounds, okay. The tongue makes contact with the alveolar ridge, just like for first pair they were bilabial, so it was basically the 2 lips, okay. These 2 sounds could be produced with the help of 2 lips, okay. So that's the distinction, okay. And come to the third pair, okay, k and g. These 2 sounds are velar sounds, okay. The back part of the tongue makes contact with the velum, okay, or soft palate. So that's why both of these sounds are called velar sounds. So what I'm trying to say is that actually the place of articulation and manner of articulation remain the same for all these three pairs. The only distinction is that of voice. Okay, is different from b because of voice. Likewise, t is different from d just because of voice. The first one is voiceless and the second one is voiced. And same is true for the third pair. Okay, k is voiceless and g is voiced. Otherwise, there is no distinction between these two sounds in each pair. Okay, let's try to understand plosives or stops. Okay, this manner is actually accomplished in in 4 different phases. Usually phoneticians classify this manner into 4 different stages or phases. Okay, what happens there is, first of all, that the air stream is blocked, and it is blocked completely. Okay, the stricture is complete and total. Okay, the air cannot escape. Okay, once the articulators are just they are pursed. Okay, they offer the obstruction, so the air cannot escape. Okay, that's what you have to remember. So the blockage is what? This is complete. Okay, and that's why we call it closure phase. Why? Because the air stream is completely closed. Okay, it is blocked, it is stopped from escaping. Okay, this is the first phase. The second phase is the hold phase. Okay, in which the air stream is held for some time. Okay, and then so that the pressure is released. This phase is also known as compression phase. Why? Because the air stream is held for some time and the air stream is compressed so that the pressure is built behind the articulators. Okay, and the third phase is the release phase, in which the air stream is released, but the release is sudden. Keep this in mind. Okay, this is very important here. Okay, the release is what? It is the air is abruptly released. Okay, the release is sudden, abrupt, or it is actually it's kind of like what should I say? It is released abruptly, without, it's not gradual. Okay, fine. So this is these terms are very important. Just like in the first phase, I said that the air stream is completely blocked, and the second phase, it is the air is stopped for some time. Okay, completely blocked, and it is stopped for some time. The third phase is the release phase, and the release, what kind of release is that? The air is released abruptly. Okay, and because of the complete closure and because of the abrupt release, what happens is that we have got greater explosion. Okay, after a sudden release, what happens? An audible loud noise is heard. Okay, this noise is called plosion, or sometimes you may call it explosion. Okay, the release of the air is sometimes accompanied by aspiration or puff of the air. You can just put a page, okay, a paper in front of your mouth, and you just utter any of these sounds, and you will find that there is a puff of air, there is greater explosion. You will see that the paper is basically, it's shaken. It is actually pushed outward. Okay, when you utter any one of these sounds. Okay, just put just a paper, okay, a page in front of your mouth, and you just say it p, o, b, o, t, o, d, or even k, o, g. So you'll find some sort of explosion. So these sounds are produced, in these 4 different phases. Okay, so this is what you have to remember. Okay, and such sounds are known as plosive sounds. Okay, what are the important points here? A complete closure, okay, in vocal tract, and then we have got sudden release of the air. Okay, and then keep this in mind, not plosion but greater plosion. Okay, fine, or noise. Okay, I hope it's clear. Okay, we have got 6 plosives in English. Now we'll move on to the second manner of articulation, but before that, let's try to understand, each one of the pairs here. Okay, the first pair, okay, p and b, it's a bilabial pair. Okay, and the second pair is alveolar pair, and the third one is velar pair. Okay, so the 6 plosives could be divided into 3 groups depending on the place of articulation and the articulators involved in the production of speech sounds. Okay, so let's try to understand the first one. Okay, bilabial plosives. Okay, the plosives p and b are produced with 2 lips coming together to produce a closure, which blocks the flow of air completely, and the air being released when the lips move apart. Okay, they are therefore known as bilabial plosives. Okay, and that's the description. You could call them, bilabial plosives. Okay, I can give you another way to describe each one of the consonants here. Okay, whenever you want to describe this sound, the one I have just pointed out here. Okay, so this one, p. Okay, so you could call it that it is voiceless bilabial plosive. Okay, or voiceless bilabial stop. Okay, and likewise you can call this one as voiced bilabial plosive or voiced bilabial stop. Okay, this is the complete 3-term description. Okay, the first one refers to the voice, whether the sound is voiced or voiceless. The second one is related to the place of articulation. Okay, bilabial, both of them are bilabials. Okay, and the third one is related to the manner, which manner this sound belongs to. Okay, what kind of manner it has. Okay, that's the complete description, and it's not just for p or b, for these two, but rather you can give this 3-term description to any kind of any kind of consonant. Okay, fine. Okay, let's move on to the second pair. Okay, and both of these sounds, t and d, they're plosives, but what kind of plosives? Alveolar plosives. Okay, they are produced with the blade of the tongue pressed against the alveolar ridge to form the stricture or the closure, and the air getting released when the tongue moves apart. These sounds are also known as alveolar plosives. Okay, fine. This one is voiceless alveolar plosive. This one. Okay, and that one is voiced alveolar plosive. Is this fine? I hope it's clear. Now move on to the third pair. Okay, velar plosives. The plosives k and g are produced with the back part of the tongue. Okay, pressed against the soft palate or velum. Okay, soft palate is also known as velum. Okay, to form the closure, and the air getting released when the tongue moves away. Okay, so the sounds k and g are therefore called velar plosives. Okay, and if you give a complete 3-term description to each one of them, you can say that it is voiceless velar plosive or stop, and this one is voiced velar plosive or stop. Okay, that's what we have. Okay, so the 2 sounds in each of these 3 pairs are basically distinguished from each other in terms of 3 features which we have discussed. The first one is what? The first one is the presence or the absence of the voicing. The second one is the presence or the absence of aspiration. Okay, and then we have got the length of the preceding vowel. This could be another further explanation of the terms. Okay, first of all, it's the voice. Okay, the second one is aspiration. Okay, what is aspiration? It is basically the puffing of the air, just like okay. So I'm explaining it further. Okay, and the third one is the length of the preceding sound. Okay, these are basically these two are phonological features. Okay, and the first one is basically, this is a phonetic feature. Okay, fine. This is general, and these are basically related to the system of English. Okay, so the length of the preceding vowel, keep this in mind, that vowels may be affected. The length of the vowel may be affected. Some of the vowels may be shortened or lengthened depending on the on the nature of the plosive. Okay, let's try to explain each one of them in detail. First of all, presence and absence of voicing. In each pair, the first sound is always voiceless, whereas the second is generally voiced. Okay, like for example, I've already explained that p, t, and k are voiceless bilabial, alveolar and velar plosives respectively. Okay, the first one is voiceless bilabial plosive. The second one is voiceless alveolar plosive, and the third one is voiceless velar plosive. Okay, fine. And then we have voiced plosives. Okay, so the first one is voiced bilabial plosive. Okay, and the second one is voiced alveolar plosive, and the third one is voiced velar plosives. Okay, like that. So that was the first feature. Okay, the presence in the absence of voicing. Now let's try to understand aspiration. Okay, the presence or the absence of aspiration. Okay, aspiration. What is aspiration? Aspiration is basically aspiration is a phonetic feature that characterizes speech sounds which are produced with an audible puff of the air. Okay, this puff of the air is basically what we call the aspiration. Okay, which sounds like okay, this soothing sound. Okay, so the release of p, t, and k is followed by an audible plosion. Keep this in mind that voiceless plosives have got this feature. Okay, that there is a burst of noise, burst of air. Okay, there is then in the post-release phase a period during which the air escapes through the vocal folds, making a sound like okay, and this is what we call aspiration. Okay, so the voiceless plosive p, t, and k are, when occur in the initial position in a word, are aspirated. Okay, fine. But voice sounds b, d, and g are never aspirated. This is what you have to remember. Okay, this is the first and the foremost feature. Okay, that's the first classification, that actually only aspiration is basically a feature which is associated with the voiceless plosives. Okay, or stops. Okay, like look at the examples here. Okay, I'll just utter them and you'll find that. Look at the first example here. Okay, let me have the pointer again. It's gone. Okay, fine. Okay, this one. Okay, I'm just trying to compare these two sounds. Okay, this is a minimal pair, and let's see what we have. Where do we have aspiration and where we do not have? Okay, let's try to find out. The first one, these two actually end with voiceless plosive t, and these two end with what? With these two start. Sorry, the first one is basically it starts with the voiceless plosive, and the second one starts with the voiced plosive. Okay, and let's see what we have. Do we have aspiration or not? Let me just pronounce the first one. Okay, pat. You see there, pat. There is puff of air. And when I pronounce the second one, bat. So we do not have any aspiration. Okay, I'm just pronouncing them again, pat and bat. So you see here that in the first example we have aspiration, but in the second one we do not have any aspiration. Now let's see the second pair, in which we have the first one as t sound and the second as d sound. Okay, so if you pronounce the first one tin, okay, so you will find after t. You see here, this is called aspiration. Okay, fine. And we do not have any aspiration here in the second example, din. In the word din, you won't find any puff of the air. Okay, so basically this is what we call that this is the difference. Even if you do not aspirate a certain speech sound, if you say, instead of saying pat, so you may say pat, okay, and you won't be misunderstood. I mean, the listeners will understand you, will comprehend you, but the issue is that's the actual pronunciation of this word. Okay, whenever you pronounce a certain word which starts with a voiceless plosive, you have to aspirate it. okay, if it is not followed by any other consonant, and it is followed by a vowel sound, like in the case of pat and tin, okay, or in the example of cool, okay. And now move on to the third pair, okay. Look at the first one, caught. You see, caught. And now move on to the second example, okay, in this pair, got. So you see here that, you know, the first one was aspirated, okay, caught. After k, we sensed that, we heard that a puff of air, okay. But after g sound, we do not have any kind of aspiration, okay. This is actually the basic feature here, okay. And aspiration is the feature of plosives only, okay, not any other manner. And within plosives, we have the voiceless plosives, that they are aspirated, okay. Okay. Moreover, voiceless plosives can be preceded by s, as in spot. So in spot, okay, we and in the example of stop and skill, okay, these are the examples where actually, you know, where we see that they may become, you know, they may come in combination with another fricative, okay, and that's actually sound, okay. So this is another feature, and this feature is basically a phonological feature. It's not a phonetic feature, okay. It is in the system. So the system of English language, okay, the phonological system of English language allows, okay, the sound s to occur before the voiceless plosives, okay, as in the example, you can see here in the example, okay, that before p we can have s, that before t we can have s, but that before k we can have s, okay. And this is another way to make a cluster of two consonants, okay. Two consonants can occur as onset in all these examples, okay, in these syllabi, okay. But voice plosives cannot be preceded by any other consonant, okay. You cannot have spot or something like that, or dot, stop or something like that, or skill or something like that, okay. So this is also a very important feature, and you have to remember that. But when these voiceless plosives p, t, and k are preceded by s in the initial position, they are not aspirated. This is what you must also remember, that actually whenever we have got pot, okay, so it is aspirated. But when we say spot, okay, so it is not aspirated, okay. Top can be aspirated, but stop is not aspirated, okay. Likewise, kill could be aspirated, okay, but the word skill is not aspirated, okay. This is a very important feature here, okay. So we discussed what aspiration. Now move on to the, you know, the length of a preceding vowel. What happens to the length of a vowel if it occurs before the voiced and the voiceless consonants, okay. This feature is basically not limited to plosives. It's a general feature, okay. Like vowels are relatively longer when they occur before the voiced plosives, okay. Here it is said voice plosives, but I must make a correction here, okay. And this statement must be applied to, you know, the whole consonant sounds, that if vowels occur before voiced sounds, okay, so they are relatively longer, okay. And if vowels occur before voiceless sounds, voiceless consonants, okay, so they are relatively shorter, okay. Look at the examples here. This one, need, and this one, okay, need. So you see here that the vowel is one and the same. It is E, okay, in the word need and in the word need. In both of these words, the example is the vowel is one and the same. That's a long vowel, okay, E. But you see, you might notice this, that actually, you know, in the first example, okay, in the word need, this one, you know, the vowel is longer than usual, okay, like, you know, need. And in this example, okay, the same vowel is shorter, need. Why is it so? Why is it so? Because, you know, here, this vowel occurs before a voice sound, Okay, D is a voice sound. So that's why it's longer. And look at this one in the second example. Okay, in the second word, okay, this vowel occurs before a voiceless sound. Okay, so this voiceless sound makes the vowel, the preceding vowel, shorter. Okay, that's why we do not say need, but rather need. Okay, need. You see here that actually the vowel is shorter here. Okay, same is the case here. Okay, goat. Okay, and this one goat. So you see here that here we have got diphthong. Okay, here we have got diphthong. Okay, so when the vowels are long vowels or diphthongs, so the distinction could be noticed quite easily. Okay, it could also be present in the case of short vowels, but it's really difficult to measure that, to notice that, to perceive that. Okay, so that's why we say that the long vowels and diphthongs are shorter when they occur before voiceless consonants sound. Okay, fine. So this is what we have, and look at now the third pair here, bag and back. So you see here that even here what we have is a short vowel, but still it is longer, it is pronounced longer. Okay, and here it is pronounced shorter. Okay, why is it so? Because here the vowel occurs before a voice sound. So whenever a vowel occurs before a voice sound, so it is longer. Okay, and when it occurs before a voiceless sound, okay, so it becomes shorter. Okay, all of the vowels are all of the vowels behave like that. Okay, and this is a phonological feature. This is what the phonological English system does to vowel. Okay, the length of the vowel. Okay, so all 6 plosives can occur at the beginning of a word. Okay, between other sounds in the medial position and in the terminal position or final position. Okay, this is also another feature as far as the structure of the syllable is concerned. Okay, fine. Now move on to the second one, but before that I think I should cover this in the next part of the lecture. Okay, thank you.